So, a day in the life of a bookseller. Found two things recently that are exciting, not valuable, but very, very fun. First is a fat and heavy book. It's the Leather Stocking Saga. It's got all the leather stocking books. And it is an older book. It's not book club. That means the paper is good quality, which means that the book is heavy. You might be able to see on there. It's the Deerslayer, The Last of the Mohicans, The Pathfinder, The Pioneers, and The Prairie. Fenimore Cooper can be difficult to read. When I was a teenager, I lived in Boston, actually in Arlington, near Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I worked at a used bookstore there, kind of the last generation of a pre-online revolution. It was a great, dusty old bookstore, books to the ceiling, fire hazard, basement. I'm 6'9" now. I must have been like 6'4" then, and I had to duck under the pipes in the basement to take people to certain sections. All that. It was an absolute blast. And during that time, I discovered my love for history and for historical fiction. Kenneth Roberts, especially, jumped out at me. I loved Kenneth Roberts, Arundel, Oliver Wiswell, Rabble in Arms. Fantastic books. And the great thing about Kenneth Roberts is that he wrote about New England, and I was living in New England, and so having that connection, seeing walking past the spot where this 78-year-old man had been left for dead by British soldiers, but not before killing like 3 of them himself with a bayonet. And then you're reading, books like, the Kenneth Roberts novels, really very stirring, made it real. And could have been the same for me with James Fenimore Cooper. But I have to confess that his prose is awkward and difficult for me ever to get into, so I never did. Nonetheless, still very cool. This was the same time, that time in my life was actually when The Last Mohicans came out. I remember watching it in an old theater, an old movie theater that was like, it was still like the movie theaters from the 20s and 30s, where the theater itself was huge, and there were columns, and there was a bar, and really an event at the theater. And that's how this theater still was. And I saw Last of the Mohicans there. I'm not a movie rewatcher, but I've seen Last of the Mohicans like 14, 15 times. First dozen times I saw it, I cried. I got further and further into the movie before breaking down. Now I can watch it without crying, but I definitely have to force myself to do that. But, hey, I'm Latin, so I'm a crier. Anyway, Daniel Day-Lewis, who's really fun in that movie, really great in that movie, he's called Nathaniel. The hero for these books is actually Natty Bumppo. So some customers of mine and I were discussing this yesterday. Worst hero name of all time, Natty Bumppo. Not a good name for a hero. It would be interesting to do a study on the significance of that name. Obviously Nathaniel's a much better hero name. The character is Indian in a sense, and so I'd be interested in a discussion on whether Fenimore Cooper could have gotten away with a lame name like that for a straight-up white dude. But him being kind of Indian, he can be a hero, but also slightly laughable. I don't know. This is not something that's well informed, but I have to believe that Natty Bumppo is only a good name for a hero if the hero has something that's slightly to be condescended toward. Anyway, all that being said, lots and lots of people love the Deerslayer and all that. The Deerslayer, what a great hero name that is. But the other book I found was Umberto Eco's The Mysterious Flame of Queen Levana. And what a great book this is. Umberto Eco is a professor of semiotics, I think at the University of Venice, at some Italian university. He basically invented the field of semiotics, which is the study of core symbols and symbolisms and symbologies and mythologies that kind of stay universal across the human race. Things that mean something and always mean something to people. So meaning and significance is also very important to him. In this book, this is, by the way, is the guy who wrote The Name of the Rose. In this book, the main character is an old Italian man. You're introduced to him in the hospital. He has completely lost his memory. He doesn't remember anything about his life. But he remembers all the books he's read. So he goes back to his childhood home. He's going through boxes of comic books. He remembers all the books he's read, and he's a bookseller. And so this is a fascinating book. And there are entire websites dedicated to the quotes in the book. As in, there are websites dedicated to finding the references that the character drops in his conversation or in his thoughts, because what's in his mind is, a line from T.S. Eliot or a line from so-and-so or so-and-so. But of course, none of it's referenced. So there are actually fan websites dedicated to recognizing the quotes. And of course, it was written in Italian, so then the translation into English, and the translator has to be alert, make sure he doesn't miss the quote, and he wants to put it into, because most of the quotes, honestly, are in English, because English literature, dominates this eon. But it's also a fun book because you get to, he's old enough so that you're a lot of the stuff he's reading is like fascist era comic books and that sort of thing. Really, really interesting stuff. So I found a couple of very cool books. At this point,